This was in the May update, so just a quick review. I'm not going to read everything that's on the screen here, but about a year ago, we had some really great feedback from some folks at this particular meeting saying, hey, we'd love to see an audit or an internal controls review. An audit, as we looked a little bit further into that, was going to be exorbitantly expensive, upwards somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 to do that. And because it is being asked for out of a place of we don't have a lot of emergencies, there's nothing we're particularly concerned about, the other option became could we do an internal controls review, which is essentially, instead of the full-blown audit, having a third-party person come in and just chart how does all the money flow, how does all the information work for anything finance at Discovery, and are there any recommendations or things that we see that we think you guys can do to improve how your systems are working. So up here, these were some of the responses that came back. All of them were things that were these are great ideas. We would totally love to do these, and we are in process right now of making some of those changes. If you want the full report, some of you have asked for this back in May, but I'd be more than happy to just send you exactly what we got sent from our CPA, and that way you have the whole list if you want to read through it. And if you've got any other concerns based on that or other things that you know about, you can just email me, and I would love to chat more about that. Land use planning team. Man, if you've been around Discovery for any amount of time, you probably have caught wind of a project with Habitat for Humanity that about a year and a half ago, Habitat had to step away from. And our land use team has continued to step in and say, what's God up to in the midst of this? What's going on here? Linnea Stewart is continuing to lead that team. She is an architect by trade, and so with where we're at in the process right now, she has a lot of gifts that she brings to the process. Also on that team, Gail Fleisch, who has led that team and has done a great job. Dave Little, who also serves as kind of the go-between between the land use team and our elder board. Nancy Movick, who is our community engagement director and is all out in the community and knows all the needs and the things going on in the city. Sharon Vickers, who has been a part of Discovery for years and years and years, and Steve Williams, who is our tactician and a great mind around finance and the heart of what we're trying to do around land use. That's our team. So you can feel free to ask those folks questions. They may be limited in what they can talk about, not because they're withholding information, but because there's still a lot that we don't know. Last October, we completed a charrette, and I am going to move through this a little more quickly. This was covered in our last video. But we did a charrette, which is basically, think of getting in a room with a bunch of master's architect students from CU, their mentors who are professionals out in the field of architecture and design in the Denver community, and looking at a blank chart, a blank map of Discovery Church's 18 acres and saying, what could we do here? And then it was just crayons and markers and all sorts of different designs. I've never seen so much architectural paper in my life. And it resulted in a bunch of different ideas. And so ultimately what we came away with is we're looking at the whole eastern parcel as something that we don't need to keep for Discovery's purposes down the road. What we've got right now that we can share, these are some pictures from the process of doing the charrette together. The idea of this was let's just come up with a bunch of different ideas of how this could work. We are looking at the western parcel, everything from the barn this direction, as that is land that we want to develop for Discovery purposes. So what do we need there? And maybe equally importantly, how are we going to afford to pay for this? And so right now what we have penciled out as the plan is what if we could take the corner 2 to 3 acres at Zunai and 144th? What if we could take that and just outright sell that to the right kind of buyer who would be somebody that would really help the folks who are going to be living here long-term in an affordable housing project? What if then the rest of the eastern parcel, less that 2 to 3 acres, could be built out for an affordable housing project? How many folks could we have? How many units could we have? Is 12 as much as we can do, or could we do more than that? These are drawings. So if you're seeing this and going, I have so many questions, I don't like this, I do like that, know that we're not even close to a spot right now to be able to say, this is for sure what we're doing. But I do want you to have an idea of what we're looking at. This is the whole 18 acres on each of these maps here. You can see the barn is this big red diagonal down here in these pictures. This one got flipped around, so there's the barn there. But everything then on these eastern parcels, these are affordable housing projects. You'll see varying size of buildings. This one is kind of like a townhouse row type of a build. These are more bigger buildings. These ones in red are 2 stories that have 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units on each side. All of this, as we went through the process, was really done going, we don't just want density. We don't just want to see how many people we can cram like sardines into an area. How can this be a place where people are really proud to live? How can this be a place where our neighbors are really proud that other people live there? And how can this be a place that it just shows beauty and shows the dignity of being a human being? And so right now in the process where they are, let me make sure, is continuing to flesh out these designs a little bit more. We really did end up with like crayons on a napkin. And so Linnea and our team right now are continuing to refine, what about water detention? Where does stuff like that go? If we're going to sell a chunk of the property, how exactly could something like that work? Like there's so much detail work that we're feeling like we need to do. And then when it comes to moving ahead with those ideas, our hope is we're actually going to develop something called an RFP, or a request for proposal, and it'll be a packet that we'll send out to a bunch of different development companies to say, here's what we're wanting to do. Can you give us a proposal on how you would go about completing a project, something along these lines? We'll be receiving those proposals back, and then we'll move ahead with the one that feels like it's the best match. With that, here's what we want to see developed over there. And again, all of this is still being met about. We're still developing things. This is where our team has been and where we're evolving from. An intergenerational community that drives interpersonal connectedness through multi-purpose services and programs. We want these homes to be flexible and to have enough degree of flexibility that if we would hone in on particular population now, but if that population would not be the population of greatest need down the road, that we haven't pigeonholed ourselves and now all of a sudden these homes can't support anybody else. So high degree of flexibility and intergenerational community. All right. Barn Door Coffee. Last time we were saying, please pray that this finally gets kicked through the city. It's open, baby. It's happening right now. On Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, you can drop on in between 7:30 and 12:30. It's been really fun. We had VBS that was going on here a week ago. Lots of new people running through this place. Even just in the last week, just a handful of people who I just pulled this up on Google. I just searched coffee shops near me. I just dropped in. This place is awesome. Our goal is long-term to be open more like a 5 or 6 day a week type of a time frame. Right now, we're just testing the waters to see financially, what does this thing do? What are we working with here? And so 3 days a week right now, hoping to expand days, hoping to expand hours. Everybody that's working in the coffee shop right now is a volunteer. So except for Stacy Blund, who is our coffee shop manager. So if that's something that you go, man, I would love to do that 1 day a week, just come in and volunteer a few hours and learn how to make coffee and be with people in our community who are just dropping in because they found a coffee shop on a website. Would love to have you do that. And are also still looking for folks. We couldn't serve at the coffee bar this morning because we were just down a couple volunteers. So if you'd like to serve even just on a Sunday morning, know that you're welcome to. Maybe, again, this was in our May update, so I'm not going to read through all of these things. I do just want to make sure that it's clear to us that this was not built to be a money generator for our church. I think sometimes optically it can look like that. Of course, that's why a church would do something like this. Our goal was fundamentally relationship. It is funny to me, the more I try to understand the culture of Denver, which is funny because I'm a Denver kid, and especially when I meet my friends from the South, it's so funny to me how often the phrase, come over to my house for dinner, just rolls off the tongues of every person in the South. It's wild. And that's not quite the same here all the time, and I wish it could be. However, one thing that is super distinct about Denver is we are a third space culture. We are a come meet me for coffee, come meet me for a beer, come meet me. So to say, let's have a third space at a church. Let's have a third space where people can say, hey, come meet me here. This has been built for us that we could say, hey, my friends who don't go to Discovery, come meet me here. And maybe, as our general contractor said, the seat in Discovery that you need the most isn't one of these. Maybe it's one of those. And it's also built just for the community. We don't see that coffee shop as that is ours. We see that as a gift that we offer to the community around just to say, hey, come be together. We'll continue to watch how profits flow, how things work as we consider maybe adding more paid staff, maybe having all paid staff, all those kind of things. We just wanted to be cautious and conservative as we got this thing going just to see how it behaves. Also, if you're in this room, you're probably somebody who's pretty invested in Discovery and has been around quite a lot. It will change some of the functionality, having this coffee shop, of what we're used to doing. So in the past, as opposed to like, we can just put crock pots everywhere, we can use whatever. We do have a food license for that place that we do need to protect. So things that in the past we didn't ordinarily have to ask for, we're just wanting to make sure, and if you want to host a party or a funeral or a wedding here, that is special space that has to be treated with a little bit more white glove treatment than any other place in the building. So just know if you're told no, it's not because we don't like you or because we're raining on a parade. It's because we have a food license. We can't put some things in some places. So, okay, cell tower. You may have seen some signs. They're all down now, but a while back there were some big construction public notice signs that were out front. This was a contract that was signed before my time on staff, and the deal was to build a cell tower right off kind of the corner of the building, just catty corner here. This was in contract through a third-party company that works mostly with Verizon. And it was really funny. This contract was signed years ago with a deal of they'll just start writing us checks at this particular day and time, which was about 2 years ago. They still haven't built the thing, but they've been writing us checks. It's kind of odd. But the next step for them was we have to push our final plans through City Council. So the notices that were around a few months back were just saying, hey, we're going through City Council approved. And now, again, we're kind of in this weird limbo of, are you guys going to build this thing or not? Everything's approved and it's ready to go. So just know if you start to see a bunch of construction going on, particularly in that corner of the building, that's what that is. Okay, this is just so fun. One thing I love, I think maybe my favorite series that I've ever done here is our 25th birthday. It was just so fun to not just be like, yay, go us, but to be like, man, the DNA, the stuff that got this church going is so good. And one of my favorite pieces in doing some of the interviews with the folks who were in those videos was hearing, especially when they bought this property, how many people would just come on their way to work and pull onto a dirt lot and pray. It was the coolest thing. And gosh, it would just be such a bummer if now that we have the barn, now that everything's built, we're like, well, that's all good, on to the next. So this idea of walking prayers, you'll see on your way out today, if you haven't seen it yet, right next to the plow is just a little QR code plaque, and it says walking prayers on it. And if you click into that, it'll just guide you on a walk around the whole property with different stops to pray for different things. And that'll change about every 2 months with things that we're praying for. But the invitation would just be this: pray. And it's not just internal navel-gazing prayers of pray for Discovery. It's prayers for the world around. My favorite stretch is just walking along the road on your way back. Pray for every car that drives by. It's really quite lovely, I think. So know that that's out there. Would love to invite you to do that and do that in community and with other people. Some updates since the May thing, and this will all be new to y'all. Our finance manager position is open. Carla has been doing a great job getting us through this last season, but it's become apparent in her personal life and in some really cool calling things that she's experiencing from the Lord. She really feels led to do some work in the world of single parents and ministry. And so in an effort to free her up for that, we really are looking for a full-time job for her that's sustainable enough that she doesn't need the part-time job of also working at Discovery, so that she can unleash this desire that she has to go love on single parents in our community and then beyond. So with that, we are opening up this position. It's on our website right now. It's about a 20-hour-a-week position. The pay is church pay. It's not going to blow anybody's hair back, but it's also not terrible. I would say this, man, our team, we got to January of this year, and for me, for the first time since I came on staff, there was a palpable feel of we just moved out of hold the line mode to, we could actually get some stuff done here. We're having so much fun on our staff, and so this may not be a way that somebody's going to get super rich anytime soon. To be a part of this team and to do the things that we're doing is freaking awesome. So I would encourage you, if there's anybody that you know that you're like, I don't know if they'd be interested or not, but they've got the skills, it would be a gift to them to get to serve on this team right now. It would be a gift to anybody. The other thing is that we've had the same logo since this church was planted. And it's really funny meeting folks who are new to Discovery. There's a couple who really love our website. There's a lot who are like, it looks like your website was built in the mid-90s along with your logo. And if you ever love that papyrus font, the current Discovery Compass is kind of that same feel. I love who we are, and I love what we're about. And so this is not a move to say, bash the past and on to the future. This is a loving, man, who we are is so great. I want to make sure that that's conveyed to the community around us, that when people are checking out churches in the area, that they see a logo, that they see a website, that they go, that's a place that I just want to be. And we've just heard enough bubbling up from folks around us that it's time for this to shift. So in the month of August, we'll be meeting with a marketing and graphic design expert, a guy that actually lives right here in the area, but has actually won some Grammys for album cover design. He's just like the coolest. He lives in Broomfield. It's like, what are you doing here? We'll be working with him to revamp our logo, and that will really be some of what we're waiting on for the new road sign that we want to build to make sure all the colors, sizing, all that stuff works for that. And then as we redevelop and redo the basement for children's ministry, that all those colors, all of those themes all flow together. So know that that's coming. Whew, okay, wow, that was a lot. There was a ton of information there. We haven't done this in a little bit. This is the part of the show where we release ourselves into the woods. So I would love to know what things you want to know more about. What didn't I address that you do want to know about? I will do my best to answer. Again, we are being recorded, so anything you say, if you can help me make sure that I'm repeating the question so that they can catch it through the mic, that would be great. But love to know, what do you want to know more about? Yeah, Steve.
So, on the financial landscape,
Yeah.
it looks like there's a whole lot of good information
Yeah.
that was gone through very quickly.
Yep.
What I'd like to see is, do we have financial statements, like a statement of income and expense that we can look at?
Yeah. Have you? I don't know if this will satisfy what you want. On the QR code on the back of the chairs, that's one of the buttons that's there. Is just what's the financial snapshot? Have you looked at that before?
And all it really had was very lightweight information.
Okay.
It wasn't really a financial statement.
Okay, great. I think for more, more than happy to share that with anyone who wants. So I think what I would say is this: if you just want to email me and Carla, or either one of us, but then we can talk more with you about what exactly would you like to see. And yeah, that's no problem at all. Would love to share that.
We did have, at one point, it was a very standard statement of income and expense.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to see.
Okay, great. Well, and I think some of that answer, a lot of what really generated that, like, let's have that as a button on the QR code, was trying to take a stab at, like, what's good information to share, but not too much information, but also not too little. So we might be in a spot right now where it's too little. One of the other things that is really nuanced and hard to communicate is that's feeding off of our reach reports, which are giving a real time, here's exactly what's in the bank and in QuickBooks right now. Sometimes that takes a little bit of extra information that's not on there to interpret well. So the best thing in the world would be, here's last month's and it's closed and we know exactly what that is and it doesn't need a lot of extra context. So you want a quarterly. Okay, that's a great idea.
This is not real time. This needs to be real
Okay, great.
time. Quarterly would be optimal.
Quarterly we can, yep. That's a great idea, Steve.
Zach, can you repeat that?
Oh gosh, yes, Lene, thank you. The question was, is there a better way to get financial statements of what's going on, ideally in a quarterly type of a format? So yes, I think we should.
Publish them on the website. Right?
Yeah, I think we can work on that. As we transition between Carla and who will be a new finance manager position, this will be something on their list. So just know that if if the actual deliverable takes some time, that's part of why, as we're straddling the folks who will be doing that work. That's a great idea, though. Anything else? Yeah, Kath.
Who is the next staff member to go on sabbatical?
Who is the next staff member to go on sabbatical?
Back tomorrow.
Yep, Kelsey comes back. Kelsey's back, everybody. Which, real quick, Whitney Gabbert has been filling in for Kelsey all summer. It's been anything but like a super easy summer for Whitney. She's crushed it.
And
I see Jason, but I don't see Whit. Whit, you're incredible. Just a great moment to say that. Also, when you see Kelsey, man, I can't wait to hear how her sabbatical was. Next person to go on sabbatical will be Jake Brown. Jake Brown's due in the year 2025, so we've begun some conversations about what next summer will be looking like for the Browns. So, Whitney, you're amazing. We were just talking about how Kelsey's coming back. Thanks for keeping the children's ministry running smooth through the summer. I know it was not a simple task. So, all right, great question, Kath. Anybody else? Further questions? Yes.
So as these projects happen and cash on hand goes down,
Yeah.
what is our plan for cash on hand a year from now?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question, Jess. Well, the question is, if we're planning on some of these expenses to cut into our current cash on hand, which is hovering right about where we want it to be, do we have a plan of how we're going to backfill that down the road? So I think the best answer to your question would be this. We're continuing to watch. It's like 120,000 of those dollars are set aside for let's fill the gap of what our mortgage is doing. As we're continuing to watch attendance grow, as we're continuing to watch giving continue to trend, we're actually already in a spot where we're going to be able to fill some of that gap. We're not going to need all 120,000 of those dollars. So that, I mean, obviously that's the biggest chunk. That's kind of we built that cushion as a super conservative cushion, but hopefully by the time we're getting to the end of 2025, we're not needing that at all, and now we're fully there. That said, obviously, if we end up using even a solid chunk of that, we're still out that money, plus the $30,000 for the basement, plus the $30,000 for the sign. I think the best answer I can give is this. The plan is we're going to continue to do ministry, and these feel like really important next things that we need to continue to just share who Discovery is with the community around. So there's not like a huge giving campaign that we're looking at that's going to replenish this. I think it just feels like we've been flush. We've had this money for a while, and we don't want to just keep sitting on it and then continuing to add more and more cushion to it. We want to get to a spot where we're continuing to live still within our means, but we're using what we have instead of having a big nest egg there. So there's a risk involved with it. Some of the question is the risk worth the reward of we have a children's ministry that somebody who ordinarily might have been like, I don't know that we're going to stick around, or a road sign that they go, that's why I started coming here. To have those things, will those actually continue to help fuel what we're after? And our bet right now is we think that it will continue to trend that way. So for sure, I think the hackles of the elders would be up more if it's like we're going to take that cash on hand to zero and just then freak out. Let's take a bite out of that. Let's use what we have. Let's see if we can use that to take another step forward. So that's my best answer for you. Yeah, Marla.
There's so much exciting stuff to see, and I'm really excited to see all that stuff. I do have a question. With the cell tower
Yeah.
that's coming and the electromagnetic fields, is there any concern at all, of the danger of that so close to our church?
Yeah, you bet. The question is, with the cell tower coming, is there any conversation happening around the electromagnetic field? So here's what we know. And y'all can appreciate this because you're thoughtful people. In the world of research, it totally depends on who you read to know what's true. It's very frustrating. So one of the things that we've done is we've actually purchased an electrometer. I don't know if that's the right word for it. We have our own meter. So we're taking tests right now to see what are our levels in the building so that once that cell tower is built, we can actually be able to compare it to something and see what else is happening here. One thing, Marla, that's also really hard is while those are giving off some electromagnetic signal, they're also sending those signals to everything that's in our pocket. And so, there is research to say, yeah, those are putting off more. There's something about those. But with the way that they're building those, with what they're saying are their own health codes, the risk of what that's putting out is incremental when compared to how much risk do I have by keeping this thing on me all the time. But it is something that we'll continue to watch. And with the meter that we bought, that was the express purpose, is just to pay attention to what's this actually doing. Yeah, Blake.
So the plans for, let's say, low-income housing.
Yeah.
So before we kind of partnered with Habitat for Humanity, which was give them the land, let them manage everything.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be landlords. We wouldn't be
Yes.
any of that. Is this similar, or
Yeah, great question.
you're trying to do?
Yeah, great question. The question is, with Habitat, we were essentially giving them the land and they were taking the ball and they would run it, own it, operate it from there on out. What does that mean for what we're trying to do here? I think we have continued to say we don't want to be landlords. We have a mission as a church, and we don't want to, include property management as a part of that. It just starts to divide us. There's lots of different things that we've looked at. Part of what we hope to be writing into our RFP, request for proposal from these development companies, is how does this work long term? And again, this whole conversation is still evolving within our land use team. But what does it look like to them if we do just outright sell the development of this land? It would be similar to Habitat of like, can you guys take it and run? I don't know that off the table is the option. We've been in contact with other churches who have done something similar with their land, who have said, we actually started a different 501c3. They're not attached to our church, but we spun them off and they actually run all that. That option may be on the table for us, but I think for the land use team, for the elder board looking long term, our desire is not that we're managing a subdivision. We'd love for this to be its own deal, and we'd love to be great neighbors to them, but not run their HOA. So, yeah, Deb.
So, kind of watching this process in Erie, what they came out with was absolutely not affordable housing.
Okay.
And part of that is not like, I'm criticizing them, but part of it is because land developers, it's expensive.
Yeah, gosh.
All this stuff is expensive. So what they came up with was starting $400K. That's the affordable
Mm-hmm.
housing in Erie. Now, if you compare that to what the median house is in Erie, sure, it's a lot less. But so what is, this is a rich area. So what are we looking at how to really make something affordable, or are we just trying to make something less?
Yeah. Oh, Deb, that's a great question. The question is, so in Erie, there's been an affordable housing project that's been done, constructed, built, selling homes, and the sale price of these homes is still $400,000. Like, it's still really, really high, relatively. What is ours going to reflect? We're in the process right now of figuring that out. Right now, our last meeting was continuing a conversation of who exactly will this serve? Is this just general affordable housing? Are there specific groups that we're wanting to make sure we're thinking about? Are there specific groups we want to make sure we're building specifically for? So this, for me, for sure falls in that pray for this team. The way this is working is that the land use team is continuing to just kind of vet these ideas between what Lene is working on the architectural side, between what the whole team is doing in their own prayer and discernment. Who do we feel like God's drawing us to create this for, without being so pigeonholed that it only does the one thing and in 5 years we're stuck? But the world of affordable housing, it's been probably in my job, the wildest. I don't know how Steve and the team that has done this before did this, because it's so crazy. But yeah, are we doing, if you make 80% of the average median income, then it's like these were built for you? Is it 60% of the average median income? I think you were saying this, Deb, but the developers who will say, well, we'll build 80%, but we're not going to build 60%. It narrows the field so much. And so I think with pretty solid authority, I can say the land use team is feeling the gravity of some of those decisions right now, even as we're preparing. All in RFP is here's a rough draft. What can somebody else do? How can you take the ball and further this? Even the work to get that rough draft done is a burden. And so they're in the process right now of figuring that out. Yep.
I thought our motive was to help the needy.
Yes, and that Marcia just said, I thought our motive was to help the needy, and that's absolutely the motive. Yep. That's the needy is a broad term. And when you're looking at, we can only build so many units, who exactly those get built for, it could be built generally for the needy, or there are some things serving different populations, different kinds of people. We would need to build it this way to do this thing for this particular group in need. That's the base of Deb's question of so how? How is that happening? Who's that for? Yeah.
That's pretty complex.
It is complex, yeah. Yeah, Chet.
So I think if I remember right, with Habitat, all of the zoning and everything was in place. Is this gonna have to start over
Yeah, that's a great question, Chet. So you right now are sitting in, is it 3 zones or 4 zones, land use team? I can't remember. 4, yeah, you're in 4 zones right now, 4 building zones. So that's super fun. So Habitat, one thing that was great about Habitat is they came in, and the hard part for them is that they spent about $250,000 doing all that infrastructure work, all the zoning, blah, 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 and they zoned it for those 12 units. Again, so much of this depends on what's the final plan. Will stuff have to be rezoned or not? We're not totally sure. I think the chances of us not having to rezone anything are relatively small. But those so far for that particular project are not costs that we've incurred so far. That's been all on Habitat. So we will see what our RFP, what our here's our design, and then so much of that too becomes in partnership with the developer that'll be taking the project on. Yeah. 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 Yep. We have a ton of needs out there for that project. So, any other questions?
Zach, I know in real estate development these days, step 1 on the front range is, can you get water?
Yeah.
You can't get water, you can't build any houses there. Is water available, and has that been?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, anything in the world of real estate development in Colorado, can you get water to it? Here's what we know for sure is that we know that we can to 12 Habitat units. And again, that's part of why it's become so important to go, we need to do some due diligence to figure out what we can actually do here, so that as we send out something like an RFP, it's not going out to people who, we haven't done the work to understand what it is that we're asking for. So that is some of the work that Linnea is doing right now as she's, kind of relooking at all those plats and stuff like that. So, yeah. The plan for Habitat is that we would tap into the water line that feeds this neighborhood right up here, coming off the city. So we know that we can do that, and that's available. How many homes can that do? We're figuring that out. So, anything else? Okay. I'll be available if you're I have a question, but I didn't want to ask in front of everybody. That's totally fine. I'll be available up here afterwards. Y'all, this is really fun. The fact that we're talking about an affordable housing project still, after everything that's been through, everything I know from other folks who are doing this at their churches, this takes multiple attempts to do. So where it may feel really defeating, I would just encourage you, as I've learned, this is just a part of the process. This is just so cool that we have the land and the story of this place, that we have this land. It's such a gift. It's so fun meeting folks that are new to this church every single week. And as we get into the fall, connecting those folks to relationships, what a gift. We're just having a lot of fun right now. So, well, if I may, let me wrap us up in some prayer, and we can head on to our Sunday afternoons. Yeah, God, at the end of the day, we want this place, both the building and the land and the people, to reflect who you are to the world around. And so, in the ways where we're in deep need of just receiving who you are, we want to know you. And then for sure in the ways where you're inviting us to reflect you, help us to have the courage and the discernment and the leadership and the resources when the time is right to be able to step into those things. Thanks for these folks who care about our church, and help us continue to steward things well. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, y'all. Thanks again. Have a great Sunday. You can grab me if you still have some lingering questions. We appreciate you.